First official U.N.I.A meeting.
Welcome.
Thanks. I'll continue by reciting this poem, Marcus Garvey, entitled The New Day. The Negro slept 1,000 years while the white men moved along, and so he sheds his bitter tears as white men sing their song. Another day has just begun for white and black alike. The white man greets it with his gun. Will the Negroes ever strike?
One more time, the lady president said.
Yes. The Negro slept 1,000 years while the white men moved along, and so he sheds his bitter tears as white men sing their song. Another day has just begun for the white and black alike. The white man greets it with his gun. Will the Negroes ever strike?
We're going to look at a number of Garvey's poems, and I want you to think on them. And I want you to think on the words that he wrote, some of them almost 100 years ago.
Very relevant.
And the subject he was speaking to. Garvey wrote this particular poem after he had gone into self-imposed exile from Jamaica. He had his home, his offices, his businesses stripped from him as a result of a case brought against the U.N.I.A., not even him personally. At a time when he had just begun his family, his children were in diapers. And this country betrayed him. Corrupt judges gave extraordinary rulings against him. Bailiffs sent to his homes to confiscate his things, something that can be very devastating to any young man with a family to support. And so by 35 he had had enough. Took his wife and his 2 sons and he moved to London. Sad story. It was from London that this country had to retrieve his body to intern him at what became now our National Heroes Park. Never Garvey's wish. But it's so funny how we slay our prophets time and time again and claim them after, commercialize them after. Everybody's on the bandwagon. I laugh to myself sometimes at Garvey functions and say, thinking to myself, if Mr. Garvey were here, just how many of these people would have been on his side? Or how many of them resemble and sound like and have the posture of those same people who were his enemies, who defamed him, who tried to smear his character, who lobbied against him and advocated for his destruction out of fear of the black man accomplishing what he will. We strive on, and one of the ways we honor our founder is to make sure the institutions and organizations that he founded do not die and do not become relics or just words in a history book. So to all the learned ones out there talking about the U.N.I.A. in the past tense, let me say into the camera there, big up brother Big Stone, wake up. The U.N.I.A. was, is, and will forever be until the African empire rises. That's what Garvey says. All right. At this time, and let me invite him to come and bring greetings. We attended a function, I believe, last week and made presentations. Presentations were made to Fred Lux, to Mother Samad, Paul Elliott and others. It was actually Paul Elliott's 5th album launch. So let me invite him to pass the camera to someone else and just come up and say a few words of greetings. Brother Claude Sinclair is here after inviting him for so long. He's here 2015. Give him a round of applause. Welcome, Big Stone.
Very pleasant good afternoon to each and every one, Mr. President, Lady President, Chaplain, and to each and every Garveyite sitting here on this beautiful lawn of Liberty Hall. My name is Claude Sinclair, and real quickly, I didn't know much about Mr. Garvey, even though I was born in St. Anne, the same parish that Mr. Garvey was born in 58 years ago on the 3rd of July. It was only when I was 23 years old when I got to the United States and look on some of our great heroes like Nelson Mandela, Kwame Nkrumah, Patrice Lumumba, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, just to name a few. It was then that I recognized how powerful Mr. Garvey really is. That was, because he still lives in all of us. And I promised myself and my children, and I told my wife that I must come back to Jamaica to work along with these great people that have been carrying the mantle for so many years, and to put my little part in helping to strengthen this massive movement that Mr. Garvey started well over 100 years ago. I've done a number of things. Brought back in 2012 Mr. Garvey's son, second son, Dr. Julius Garvey. In 2013 I did invite him again and he came. I went to South Africa and I brought Steve Bantu Biko's son, Nkosinati Biko. Reason for doing that, Mr. Biko was also inspired by Mr. Garvey. So in bringing Steve Bantu's Biko's son to Jamaica, it's like telling the Jamaican people that, hey, these great people from abroad can admire and inspire by such a great man, then we here in Jamaica should do the same. We do not lift up Mr. Garvey the way we ought to.
That's right, my brother.
And I'm doing my little part. Yeah. Recently we pay respect, of course, to Queen Mother Samad, who makes me cry every time I see her, because she came here almost 50 years ago. Love Mr. Garvey so much, love his teaching so much, that she told me on camera she's going to die here. She purchased her spot, her burial spot, and she will die in this beautiful country. Now a lot of people call me a junkie, a crackhead. I'm talking about my wife and my children. I must be crazy. Why should I leave the land of the United States of America and come back to Jamaica that has nothing? Jamaica is the greatest place on the face of the earth.
Yes, sir, my brother.
Mr. Garvey said, anywhere there's, anywhere there's an African, there's African.
Big talk, big talk there, Mr. Big Man.
So, I personally came back to Jamaica to do my little part with my camera, because we do not capture some of the greatness of our people. I'm not a spy. I just use my camera so that we immortalize these great moments, that we can save them for our children and our children, children, and our children, 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 children. Just like how his wife, Amy Jakes Garvey, she saved it for her generation of children. We call them little cubs of Garvey, because I'm a cub of the great lion.
Sure.
I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out, and you're going to be seeing me. I've been asked a lot of time to come here, but somehow, you know, it never really did happen. But they say no better time than now.
Yes, sir.
And you'll be seeing more of me.
Yes, sir.
And I only hope that I'll be given an opportunity to play a small little role in helping to make this great movement bigger and better and sweeter than it is.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
God bless you, my brother.
Evening.
God bless you, my brother. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you.
But first we have we're going to read the second Garvey lesson for today. It is a poem entitled Going Wrong. And as we think about recent landmark rulings in the United States, so much our first black president has accomplished, huh? When I read this poetry from Marcus Garvey, somehow it made me think of that. So let me ask for a volunteer to read. If not, I'm going to call upon the Vice President, who is a poet himself. This one written in 1934. Come, Brother Jawari. Marcus Garvey, Going Wrong.
I'm indeed honored just to speak the words of this great man. Such a wonderful pleasure to be here with all my brothers and sisters. And I'm blessed to know that we all love Mr. Garvey tremendously in our own way. As a poet myself, I find it very, very stimulating to read this.
Liberty all.
It's called Going Wrong.
The meeting, the Garvey meeting.
My God, the world is going wrong.
Yeah.
Frail man has made a mess of things, and now the devil seems to be on top, confusing presidents and kings. Oh, come, good Lord, with grace divine, and stem the tide of human sin. For left alone, we'll all ruin make, and close the gate to enter in. There's hell on every hand today, and man is raising Cain all around. There are curses, blasphemies galore. Stop them, O Lord, and check the bound. The devil smiles at his good work, and men do dance with satisfaction. But hell let loose is sin on sin. Send, Lord, your benediction. In solemn notes, the Negro cries, we are getting hell on every side. Come, Lord, and clean the dens of men, and make us with good abide. God bless the name of Mr. Garvey and all those who love Mr. Garvey and his works.
Enough said on the topic. If you want to know Garvey's position on it. Going wrong. Going wrong. Let me invite Sister Isha Bel. We're ready for her. Give her a round of applause. I've seen this sister perform red, black, and green so many times. She was last with us, I think September last year, when we did that commemoration for Edelweiss Park, where the U.N.I.A. had a sign placed in honor of Marcus Garvey on Slipe Road. It's where Rainforest Seafood is. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. There's also one on Charles Street at P.A. Benjamin. These are landmarks to show that Garvey worked at P.A. Benjamin in the early 20th century, and that he opened Edelweiss Park on Slipe Road in the 30s. Give her a round of applause. Songstress, Isha Bel.
Extraordinaire.
Greetings, brothers and sisters. How are you?
Very well, very well.
All right. Let me take out the mic. Because I have to be free.
Yeah.
The same glory and success attained by other men who understand themselves may be yours. Man in the full knowledge of himself is a superb and supreme creature of creation. When man becomes possessor over the knowledge of himself, he becomes master of his environment, the captain of his own ship, the director of his own destiny, the accomplisher of his own end.
Whoa, yeah, Daddy Marcus say, wrap me up in the red, black, and green, the symbol of the free, fulfill my brother's dream. Wrap me up in the red, black, and green, African liberty, one God, a destiny. Been sleeping too long in degradation, time to wake up from our slumber. Stand up, my brothers and sisters. Marcus echoes from the grave, calling the strong and brave. Time to break the chains that bind and move the shackles from our minds. Brothers and sisters, first be wise, organize and centralize, so let the dreams be realized. Wrap me up in the red, black, and green, the symbol of the free, fulfill my brother's dreams and my sister's dreams. Wrap me up in the red, black, and green, African restitution and repatriation to build a black nation. Wrap me up in the red, black and green, that symbol of the free. Fulfill my brother's dreams and my sister's dreams. Wrap me up in the red, black and green, African liberty, what God aimed destiny. Okay, listen, I was going to quote Marcus Garvey, but there's something I have to say. You see, most of us in this country have lost our roots. Right now I'm working in Back to Africa Majestic Artists Community. And I can tell you that you see the young men down there, brilliant minds, leadership qualities, but they don't know who they are, where they come from. So we have a job to do of getting back in that community and reawake the spirit of Marcus Garvey in that community. Because an African, the Maroon, Ashanti community, and we have to wake up the spirit within them, alright? So work with me. Give me the red. Tell me red. Red. Give me the black. Black. Give me the green.
Green. No green.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Give me the red. One more time.
Red. The black.
Give me the black.
I know black.
Give me the green.
Green.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Give me the red, black and green. Give me the red, black and green. Red, black and green. Marcus Garvey C.
Lovely voice.
I know why this is one of the artists we have approached in terms of that project I told you about, the music of Marcus Garvey.
Talent, super talent.
So there's more to come.
Yeah.
Look for something big in terms of that in August.
Yeah.
Now before our guest speaker joins us, we're going to do our final Garvey lesson today, our final selection from the poetic meditations of Marcus Garvey. Do I need to ask for a volunteer, or do I just call you out?
I'll volunteer.
Okay, very good.
Claude has volunteered.
Yes, sir, my brother. Catch you again. Come, sir. Come and speak the great man's word. Yes, from your lips. There you go.
One for you.
There you go.
Now the first two lines of this, you tell me if you recognize it, and then you'll see why the music of others has been credited as being genius and so spiritual.
Yes.
Not all of it came from their own
imagination,
creativity,
and vision, but
as a wise man would, many of them stood on the shoulders of giants.
Yes.
And this particular poem I recognized when I read it first, from the first two lines. Being a reggae fan myself, I'll let Brother Claude read for you. It's entitled Man to Man.
Man to man is so unjust. Don't know what to...
Man to man. Yes. Yes. Man to man is so unjust, until we know not whom to trust.
Yes.
For we have made life alive in treating man less than fly.
Yes.
To tell the reason why it's so, into history we must go.
Yes.
Revealing crime just after crime, from Cain and Abel to this time. Our God made man in perfect form, and to the standard to conform. But in his ways of self alone, he crushed the good and built a throne. A regal personage is he, as proud and selfish as can be. Forgetting God, he robs and kills, and lay the course of human hills. Is there no help that we can give to brighten life in truth to live? Yes, there must for you to do in treating man as Christ did you. If we should change the old bad way, the good would shine in us each day. Then life would be a happy dream, a radiant, fair morning beam. Thank you.
Bless up, my brother. Mr. Garvey, representative.
From a speech Mr. Garvey made in Nova Scotia in 1937 when he said, we are going to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery, for while others may free the body, none but ourselves can free our mind. So true. So true. Sister Princess is here, and she was invited today to do a presentation, a brief one. She's one of the U.N.I.A members who took advantage of a training program at the initiative of Our Lady President, Mrs. Valerie Dixon, done in collaboration with the Rural Agricultural Development Agency, where they were training people in the making of wines, and she has taken off and really taken root with it. I don't know what you call people who make wine. What is that word? There's a word for it, you know. I should ask my wife. What is the word for the people who... A what? A vintner. So she's on the road. Please give her a round of applause as she makes a quick presentation, after which we're going to hear from our guest speaker, Dr. Tunde Bawji, professor at the University of West Indies. He's a Nigerian who's been living in this part of Africa for the past 2 decades, you know. So we're going to hear from him, but first give Princess a round of applause.
Yes, Princess.
She's a special lady. Yes. Greetings in the name of the Most Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey.
Yes, yes.
Great motivator and a role model for me today. I must give thanks and praise for the Creator. This time, you know, I'm happy and I'm truly blessed because of our Lady President. I'm truly blessed and I'm highly favored. And I'm too blessed to be stressed, and I hope you are too also. From love in my heart. You know, I'm really genuinely Princess Love, and that's what I was called, and I embrace that name because really and truly of a fact, it's right here. All right. With the training at RADA a couple of months ago, and for the U.N.I.A, I tell you, ambition goes a long way. Empress, I give thanks for you and give thanks for Brother Stephen for U.N.I.A. Keep the fire burning, because that's the reason why I am a member today, because U.N.I.A is alive and well in living colors.
Yes, I am. Red, black, and green.
And I don't regret the day that I become a member of the U.N.I.A, and that's the way it will be forever. Bless up yourself, Brother Bawji and others. Happy welcome to the U.N.I.A. If you are not a member, try become one. Yes, it's not about also number, but also become self-employed. Self-employment. Oh, bless the name of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Up your mighty race. I am a mighty woman today. Mighty in career and character and ambition. I'm proud to be a Garveyite today. I don't know about my music career, but the talent is there. But when one door shut, I said another one is open. Through the U.N.I.A. So if you put me down in the music fraternity, Marcus Mosiah Garvey and the Spirit of Garvey raise me up today. Yes, I am powerful to embrace today, to be a winemaker. And the wine that I have today is the Guinean weed and moringa wine, the cashew wine, and the thinking toe wine. I have the botanical name, but I can't call it right now. And I'll be going on and on and on, as long as the Most High give me life. I'll pursue this career with pride, because I want to extend it not only in Jamaica and the U.N.I.A, but across the globe. And a little while you will see these wine in the supermarket, because I'm pursuing to get my barcode and to register these wines. Yes, because what I've seen now is 2 Jeep out there are vans marked U.N.I.A. or van for the U.N.I.A. Because guess what? The spirit of God is in my heart. Because I want to see more development in U.N.I.A. and it begins with you and I. We have to put it in practice, not only to come here and sit down and talk as others talk, because talk is cheap. But they come and they stand up and say, yes, I'm going to take up the initiative. Our lady president said, go, and we went. And I was determined. I persevere because I know what I want. Because I know that deep in my heart I'm a Garveyite. I want to represent what Garvey stands for. If you have ambition, you stand up to represent your country, your people, your pride. Most of all, you want to represent your children, because they are the future. Not only your children, but the young people in Jamaica. You want to set a standard. Plant or put your foot down. Because when we invite them to U.N.I.A, there's something that you want to show them, that this is what Garvey stands for. Up you mighty race. We can accomplish what we will, because the power is in the black people. Everything that we want, what we need, is within us. We only have to persevere and have that ambition and the goal. And with pride, I'm proud to go on the street. When I just started out, I'd have to go on the street in the sun. No, as one person tastes this wine, they're putting an order. What I'm getting back now is great feedbacks. 2 people or 3 people or more. My phone keeps ringing off Brother Stephen and Sister Valerie. Oh, Empress Love, this is not wine, this is medicine. I feel so proud, Empress. It makes me want to go on and on and on. Some persons would say, how you keep up to the standard? It's very high. Because what I started out to do, I maintained it. I maintained my standard. So I continue to maintain the standard. Many want to ask me how I do it. They want to know my secret formula. I said, no, I can't do that. This is my secret formula. God gave it to me. I'm gonna keep it secret. I'm gonna keep it going. If you want to go out and try it, go out and try it on your own. But I can never tell you what I do to get this, because it has God's blessing in it. Because when I make this wine, I put my prayer over it. Not only just a simple prayer, but a prayer of power and belief by faith. And I ask the Almighty God to let me get testimonies. And truly, of a fact, God answers prayer, because I'm getting testimonies. 2 people called me and said, you know what? The wine is helping or curing something. I didn't ask whatever illness is in their vessels, but it is working. The Guinean weed wine, someone is getting some form of help instead of the doctor's medication. So I know that the herb are the healing of the nation. I'm thanking the Most High God, because I've chosen the Guinean weed, which is the most leading herb right now, and the moringa seed. And I'm very truly blessed to start it out with this, and I'll continue to use it. And I have a brother of mine who is living in Canada, my blood brother. He came here in January and he tasted the Guinean weed wine. And he said he wanted to take up a couple boxes up to Canada. Unfortunately, he was overloaded. He was overweight at the airport. And he took up only a dozen. You know what he called back and said to me? He's coming back in August, because he have to carry less luggage to make way for more wines, because he has some friends into Canada, when he took the wine to the store, it was done the same day. So he's so sorry that he did not plan ahead to take up this Guinean weed wine. And guess what? He sent my money through the Western Union. I said, my God, my name, Marcus Garvey, up you mighty race. The color is here. It is in Canada. I give thanks. I have so much to give thanks for. I said, yes, if me do a boss, guess what, boss? Guinean weed wine. And Marcus Garvey.
My princess.
And the princess. I'm truly blessed. Sister Valerie, oh my God. You are also blessed. You are blessed. Yes. You are blessed. I am blessed. We are blessed. Yes, I give thanks.
Up you mighty race.
Oh, up you mighty race. I wish Garvey was here. I would hug him and squeeze him. I love Garvey so much. I wish he was here. Yes, give thanks. So, if you need Guinean weed wine, I get up to $300 for one of these ones.
Okay.
It is so powerful. Up to $300 for a wine I got. And one of my first customers started to ordering a quart. So whenever I get the quart bottle, I will measure these to fill it, and he pay up to $1,500. For he bought 2 for me, and then he phoned me and said I have to sell him a quart. So I have a customer who called me on the phone and said you need a quart. Otherwise, yes. And who knows Brother Racy? Well, Brother Racy has a business down on South Camp Road, and he takes at the time a dozen.
Very good.
And as he quit, it's finished.
One more.
All right. Keep it there. Bless up. So, yes, I forget I have a tasting. So I have my cashew wine here for tasting and the
how many miracles?
tasting. So make yourself comfortable. We have some
It wasn't something like 7 miracles. Holy. Well, one of them was turning water into wine. And who knows, it might have a little moringa, it might have some cashew, it might have some ganja, we don't know, remember as Garveyites, we look for the science and the fullness behind things. Because not saying that they're not miracles, but right now if you were to go back in time and show a man a television in the 14th century, he's going to tell you it's magic. But you know that there is a science behind it. There's a physics and a electronics and so forth and so forth. And so it is with many miracles throughout history, you can understand. I had a teacher once who turned to the class and said, what I've always considered a very profound statement, because up to that point in my life, I had never considered it that way. But he turned to my class one day and said, when they said Jesus was walking on water, have you ever considered that he might have been surfing? And it completely changed my life after that. I'm not saying we doubt, it doesn't diminish our belief in our Creator. But really, if you see a man surfing for the first time and you've never seen somebody surf before, it wouldn't look like the man walking on water to you. So, congratulations to Princess and her winemaking, following in the footsteps of great people. Deli? Alright, let me introduce our guest speaker for today. He is with the Department of Philosophy at the University of the West Indies. Somebody who was born in Nigeria, studied in Nigeria, and came to share his wealth of knowledge with the students of the University of the West Indies. We've invited him here today just to share his own experience being a continental African living within the African diaspora for so many years. He's also very involved with the Pan-African movement at UE. He's hosted a number of conference, film festivals, exposing African film to the diaspora. Last year he had the Minister of Tourism from Nigeria, the Federal Republic of Nigeria, was here with us. And the U.N.I.A. really wants to make it our mission to reach out to our brothers and sisters who come to our shores. Just on Friday, we had a little reception for members of the Jamaican diaspora in Costa Rica who are visiting the island. Some of them for the first time in 3 generations since their parents moved to Latin America in as early as 1872. And this is one of the things that made the Garvey movement strong. Garvey's ability to appeal not just to the Africans in the West Indies and in America, but also across the continent of Africa. It is written into our construct, into our organizational DNA. We are not a Caribbean movement. We are not an American movement. We are a universal African movement. And I only say that for those of you who don't understand the science behind the word Negro. So without further delay, please give a round of applause to Dr. Tunde Bawji, our Nigerian professor in Jamaica from the University of the West Indies, Mona campus. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone.
Yes, sir. Welcome.
Good evening at the high seats. When I just came back from Kenya Monday morning, and sometime during the week I received a call requesting that I present myself here this evening, and that I must comment on my experience in Jamaica. Usually, many times when I've been invited in the past, I've visited here many times. But to be here with you in the evening like this, celebrating life, celebrating the experiences that I've had, celebrating the most honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, has not happened. So when I received the call, I said, you know, there's nothing I can do, I have to be here. And I just asked, what exactly am I expected to do? And I was given free latitude to do whatever I like, talking about my coming to Jamaica and my experience since I've been here. In the 70s, while I was an undergraduate in Nigeria, I had a complete collection of Bob Marley's music, Peter Tosh, you know, Bunny Wheeler, and all the reggae music. You know, you had the, yes, I mean, it's not CDs, it's those vinyl records that, you know, we had in those days. So I've always been very conscious that I do have brothers and sisters on the other side of the Atlantic. There was a lot of ignorance with regard to, you know, global Africa, because it is not taught in the schools. The only thing we were taught was that there was a transatlantic slave trade, and we were not even taught about the trans-Sahara slave trade. So many people didn't know about the Arabian slave trade. But some of us were well informed, especially with the contribution of Nigeria, Jamaica, and all those countries that formed the non-aligned movement, which led to the liberation of the rest of Africa, Rhodesia, you know, Namibia, including South Africa in the early 90s. So I was always conscious of that. And when I had the opportunity of going for sabbatical, I told myself, I've read so much about Jamaica, I've heard so much about, you know, the diaspora. Let me try and see if I could get to the University of the West Indies. It was just a fortunate coincidence that the Faculty of Arts, as it used to be then, had a fellowship, which was a Rhodes visiting fellowship. And at that time, they had the idea of bringing someone to come and help to develop an African component to the curriculum. And that happened to be me. So I came on Heroes Day, that was in October 1991, in the evening to Jamaica. And it happens that because it was Heroes Day, virtually everywhere was on holiday. So there was nobody to meet me at the airport. But then I called the university, and one way or the other, they said, okay, come to what used to be senior common room there. It has now become the visitors' lodge. I got there, they said there was no room for me, and then they sent me to Hotel Four Seasons. When they said Four Seasons, I was scared, because I thought that Jamaica was a tropical country. So if they now have Four Seasons, and this was October, how am I going to survive winter when, I wasn't prepared for winter? I didn't know that Jamaicans are very humorous people. They just like to keep the vestiges of, being close to the temperate regions. So that's, in short, was how I came here. And since I've been here, I have developed courses in African philosophy. And recently we were able to force through a new course in Caribbean philosophy. You will never believe it. The Caribbean philosophy course was only taught for the first time this year. And it faced a lot of resistance. And just this week, I had one of the most phenomenal Jamaicans that ever lived, visited Jamaica, Louis Gordon. I don't know how many of you know him. Is Louis Gordon, Louis Ricardo Gordon. He currently holds 3 professorships at the same time. I don't know of any other person who does that. How did we get to meet each other? In 1994, I hosted the first conference, when I became the founding president of International Society for African Philosophy and Studies. And I hosted the conference here at Mona. And he was one of the first people to attend. And since then, we became friends. But what is significant about Louis Gordon is that he grew up in Jamaica, migrated at a very tender age, and did all his studies in the US. However, Louis is one who has a very kind, most generous spirit, both in terms of his time, in terms of his resources, and in terms of his intellect. And consequently, we were quite very close. So when he came, for one reason or the other, he decided he wasn't going to take American passport. So he needed to renew his passport, and I said, well, fortunately, the director at PICA was my former student, Mrs. Jennifer McDonald. So I called, and we arranged, and he went there. But on Tuesday evening, I asked him to speak to my class on Caribbean philosophy, and he came, and he had a very good time. Now, the point I'm making is that, having been in Jamaica, it has been a wonderful experience. And I tell everybody that of all the Caribbean countries you could have, Jamaica is about the most hospitable. Once you know your bounds.
Explain, please.
Don't draw my tongue. You see, my father was a traveler. He was a, carpenter, making furniture, building, and all that. And he went all over the Western region. And one of the lessons that he taught us was that you can be anywhere, but you have to know your boundary. You must know that you are a foreigner, regardless of how long you have been there, because what an indigene, a local person sees with eyes closed, the visitor cannot see with eyes wide open. And And therefore, I took that very well, and it has served me. So what I'm trying to get at is this. Somewhere, I think in 1995, after the conference that we hosted, I have brought intellectuals like Ben Jokanan, Ali Masrui, who passed recently, Ivan Van Satima, and numerous others to speak at the U.N.I.A. And N1 was usually the venue. And whenever I brought them, the place was jam-packed because of the reputation and because of what they have done. Louis Gordon is in that category, if not better. This is someone who published, I think, about 5 books in about 3 years and about 50 journal articles. I mean, I don't consider myself in that category. He's phenomenal. And when I say he holds 2 professorships, Jamaicans don't recognize the talent that this country has produced. Simply because, we are always busy trying to run each other down. And in the process, we diminish each other until somebody recognizes the person outside. This guy holds a professorship in France, in Toulouse. He is the current Nelson Mandela Professor in South Africa, and is also the Professor of Africana Studies, Philosophy, Afro-Judaic Studies, and probably something else at the University of Connecticut. So when I say that Jamaica has produced phenomenal individuals, it is incredible. So let me come to my humble self now. Being in Jamaica for 24 years is not a long time. It is hospitable because you can move freely, you can associate, you can do whatever you like, provided you remain within those little boundaries. My intellectual development has matured over the years. I have ruffled a few feathers. I was told by a colleague that you're going to get leaks. I didn't know what that meant, until some years back, when I looked back and I said, probably because I have such a big mouth, maybe I don't sound very loud, but, I make a lot of noise. And I don't hide my feelings, that is my ideas. So, within the short period that I've been here, I think I have probably about 6 or 7 books. Another 1 or 2 should come out before September or October. So I have been very blessed. I have been blessed personally, and my family, we have been very, very blessed. So I can't complain. Now, let me, speak a little bit about my perception of Jamaica. Somewhere in 1992, I went with ACIJ to Land Island. I think that's somewhere in South Lamar, Land Island. And they were having a Golden Ages function. And there they had the mortar and the pestle. They had all kinds of traditional indigenous African things set up. And I decided to walk on the streets. I was wearing some t-shirt and jeans, and I went my way. And a lady was calling a name, which was not my name. And she followed me, and she caught up with me and then tugged at my arm and said, I was calling you. You came back home and you had no courtesy to come and say hi to me. And then I looked. It was only when I opened my mouth, and then her mouth went like this. Because what I found is that I can go anywhere in Jamaica, I don't look any different. Unless I wear something like this, and then people start becoming suspicious that probably this one is from somewhere else. What I'm trying to say is that we are one people. Unfortunately, the educational system in Jamaica has not been teaching that for a long period of time. I now understand that the curriculum is being revised to include Marcus Garvey and various other aspects of, Caribbean culture. However, it seems a little bit late. It is late in the sense that most of the education now, apart from the content, has now been hijacked by the cable, by the internet, and various other things. So our children are no longer able to concentrate on those things that are very dear to us.
Yes, sir.
I mean, for example, when I look at the gathering, I feel a little bit, worried, because I don't see the greater tomorrow here. I mean, I don't see the future here.
Right.
Huh?
Right.
People I see are people probably my generation or a little bit after me. Many of us are already on the departure lounge, or about to get there. I mean, I tell people at U.N.I.A, in another couple of years or more, I'll be gone by retirement or some other, thing. Consequently, I am suggesting that the country is the way it is because the important things have been de-emphasized or not emphasized at all, right. Not valued at all. Because of that, it's taking more than necessary time to get the things that need to be done to be done. The conference I attended in Kenya last week, the theme for the discussion is Africa looking east or west. And I said, we are still in the same old narrative. The same old narrative suggests that Africa is like the infant of the world that needs somebody to push on a plan. Whereas, if you look at the resources that drive the world, that make things happen, in all those technological marvels that you hold in your hand, some of the components come from Africa. Many. Yet, they are now saying to me in 2015, Africa looking east or west. So I spoke with the gentleman who was coordinating the conference. I said, you will allow me, if I'm coming at all, you have to give me the freedom to be different. And that freedom means you are going to allow me to challenge the narrative that you have here. Because it's a narrative that is not going to be liberating. It's not going to move us anywhere. I said, Africa, neither east nor west, but inward. And I explained during my presentation to everyone that part of the problem with Africa is Africans have been over-generous. Because Africa was the cradle of humanity. Civilization developed in Africa. Humanity, coming to recognize itself as such, evolved from Africa. Consequently, we have been more than welcoming to everybody. And because we have been welcoming to everybody, that then became an albatross around the neck of Africa. And when you welcome somebody into your house without setting the parameters, especially there was a book that was done by one Jack Goody, where he explained that in Africa, people don't have land titles. Okay? And if people don't have land titles, it means the land belongs to no one. And if the land belongs to no one, whoever takes it over and develops it then becomes the owner. That was the principle on which most of South Africa was taken by the Boers and the other whites. Okay? And part of the reason why South Africa has never condemned Zimbabwe is because the problem in Zimbabwe is very, very small compared with the problem waiting to happen in South Africa. Simply because the land issue has not been addressed. Okay? And if they don't address the land issue, then it's something waiting to explode. So what I'm trying to say is that one of the challenges that we have had as a people is because we have been very open, very accommodating, and consequently people come from everywhere to abuse us, to colonize us, okay, and to enslave us. And since if you want to liberate yourself, you have to find a means of living within your income. Okay? Well, let me explain, use my own particular example. Back in Nigeria, if you say you are friends, it's not like here, because colleagues who were Jamaicans, Professor Reed and others, when I came, they sat me down, and this is one of the boundaries they set down for me. They said, in Jamaica, if somebody come to you and say, give me $5,000, if you give it to that person, know that it is money you can forget. Because when you want it back, then that's when it may become a problem. I don't know if it is true or false. So, whereas, where I am coming from, if a friend of mine comes to me and says, I need 5,000 naira, if I have it, I'll give it to him. And he will have to pay it back when he has the money, or whenever I request for it, without any problem. So when I came here now, realizing that I have nobody to give me that kind of support, I had to make sure that I never got broke. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the basic, what has happened in Greece, I don't know how many of you listen to the news. What is happening in Greece is what has always happened to African societies and other poor countries. And Greece has now become a black country. I don't know if you get it. Greece has become a black country, being dictated to by IMF and World Bank. And until Greece says no, which is what the referendum they have done is saying, they are not getting anywhere. But they also must cut the waste wherever it is going, and that is what Jamaica is not willing to do. And because Jamaica is not willing to do, how many of you remember we had this reform of secondary education in the 90s? Rose?
Yeah.
All right? That was supposed to streamline the educational system to make sure that it became balanced. But then, because the country had no money, in the 90s, that was when we had the meltdown. The economy virtually collapsed, and then we had FinSA. We are almost getting there now, because it's the same kind of policies that are dead, that never worked anywhere, that we are still pursuing. Okay? I don't want to be a prophet of doom, so please forgive me if I don't bear cheerful news. But I'm saying that we cannot be doing the same thing that has failed and expect different result. All right. Sir.
Or expect a different result or a better result.
No, it's never going to happen. Yeah. So the third element of what I was told to talk about is a little bit of speculation. And that is to look into the future and see the need for collaboration between Africa and the diaspora. One, I have said that the educational gap, that is the knowledge gap between Africa and the diaspora is a serious thing. And because we don't know about each other, it means that there is a lot of, myths, okay? And a lot of anxieties, unnecessary anxieties, and a lot of, incapacity, because we cannot synergize, we cannot come together, unite, and do things together. And that means that we have to find a way to redress that. I don't know how we are going to do it, but it is necessary. However, the African Union has declared that there are 6 regions of Africa. Okay, 5 on the continent, north, East, West, Central, and South, and the diaspora. The global diaspora is now the 6th region. However, there's a problem. The chairperson, Zuma, came here in March. And one of the challenges we raised when she addressed students is that the African Union says that we have 6 regions and the diaspora is the 6th region. What are the systems and structures put in place to facilitate movement of persons, to facilitate movement of resources, to facilitate, I mean, when you look at the wines which, Princess has produced, there is a lot of indigenous knowledge, okay, that you find in Jamaica, for example, which are carryovers from the continent, in the use of herbs, okay, in the understanding of nature. I mean, part of the reason why blacks were brought here was because of their agricultural, intelligence, the expertise. The people they brought here first, they couldn't do anything because they didn't understand. So, if we don't, when you said you are not going to give out your property right, that's your patent. You can't, because the moment you do that, then somebody else is going to be using it.
That's what they want to do.
If Grace Kennedy wants your product, for example, then you can sell it to them, and then you make your money, and then you do something else. But unless somebody is paying you, you can't give it. But you see, that's the problem with Africa in the past. Our knowledge system has always been available for everybody to steal and to use. And because we do not document, we do not claim it, and we do not research them, it means that anybody can just come, take the knowledge and use it. That is the first thing. We need to invest in knowledge, because the future is a knowledge-driven world. It doesn't matter how much resources you have. If you have natural resources and you don't have a transformational, intellectual ability, it's just there or to somewhere, and then they transform it and sell you something at an exorbitant price. That is number one. Number two, there is need to have, we have what you know as the ACP, African, Caribbean, and the Pacific. You have the CARICOM, then you have the AU. There is need for collaboration. And how are we going to do this? My suggestion is that for a long time, I think the different communities in Jamaica has been disaggregated. Let me explain. You have the U.N.I.A, okay? You have the Rastafari. You have the Bob Marley, the reggae, structures. In most cases, if people are speaking to each other, it's not on the basis of parity or willingness to cooperate and collaborate. And because of that, the kind of leverage that should be had on the government, okay, on the government to do things which are necessary in terms of collaboration with AU, I don't think, because you don't have the critical mass, it means you cannot do these things. I don't know how you are going to do it. Because when they had the first Rastafari conference on campus, I made a suggestion. And people descended on me, as usual. What did I say? I said, if you look very carefully at Saudi Arabia and Jerusalem, it's just fortuitous that Saudi Arabia has oil. They don't need oil. Why? Because every year, because they have created this religious monster, Islam, it meant every living Muslim must visit Mecca once in a lifetime. At least once. And you know what that means? You cannot carry food, you cannot carry drinks, you only carry money and clothing. Which means that all the money you take there, you have to finish. And when you are leaving, it means you have to buy something called a shroud in which you are going to be buried when you die, so that you can get into Muslim heaven. So I said, the Rastafari intellectuals, you need to have a pilgrimage site in Jamaica to which every Rastafari must visit once in a lifetime, at least. I don't know if you understand the implication of that. There are more Rastafari in South Africa than the entire population of Jamaica. You get what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So, if, let us say, Pinnacle is a site, a pilgrimage site, okay? Bob Marley's birthplace, Marcus Garvey's birthplace, here are places to visit. And every Rastafari comes here. You have like 3 million people coming every year. And you will have repeat comers because Jamaica is a beautiful place. Which means you don't need IMF to be telling you what money you can spend, how you can spend it, whether to put it in education, whether in healthcare or whatever. Because the resources are flowing in. I said, 2, you need a liturgy. A liturgy that is an order of service and the various other ceremonies like birth, death, naming, everything. If you have that, then you have a structure which the world can use. And if you have it systematized, it means that everybody must follow the tradition. And therefore, what is yours remain yours. It's not something that somebody in Japan is going to devise, computerize, and sell to you. I said, when you do that, you are claiming property rights. And then, the Bible, for example, and this is the third one, the scripture that I suggested to the Rastafari during that conference. The Bible is the bestseller in the world. Millions are sold every year. And it's an industry. People make money. Don't let them tell you it's about religion. It's not about religion. You have employed persons, you have people making profit. It can never be broke. So I said, if you do those 3 things, pilgrimage site, liturgy, and the scripture, then you're good to go. And if you are good to go, every other thing will follow. They said, everybody descended on me and said, Rastafari is not a religion. And I said, you can lie to yourself if you like. The United Nations has recognized Rastafari as a religion, so you better claim it. Now, what does that mean for the future? It's a challenge for the intellectuals among us, for those who have, better intellect, to see how best we can use the resources, the knowledge that we already have, the facilities that God has blessed us with, to move our children further, so that we move away from the margins and move to the center where we belong. Okay? We don't belong in the margins. We shouldn't be mendicants. Currently we are beggars. It's just the way it is.
Reality.
When you have to borrow money to pay interest on your loan, you are not even paying the principal. I don't know what you call that. Orland had to close because it's a Ponzi scheme. The government itself is a Ponzi scheme.
Well said.
Yeah, because you borrow money to service interest on loans. Yeah. It's like you take money from A to pay interest to raise and then to that. It's a Ponzi scheme.
Never get paid.
So now, what then do you do for, little children coming into the world?
Debt burden.
I mean, you already borrowed what you can't pay in 50 years.
That's right. They're going to be paying that.
So, what then am I supposed to be saying as a migrant in Jamaica seeing this? Okay? And I say to people that I happen to have been in the University of the West Indies for the last 24 years, and I've been blessed. And everywhere I go, I recognize the fact that it has provided a home for me to bloom and to do well. However, the university is a failure. Because for the simple fact that the only people that we have produced are mendicant panhandlers. Yeah, the people who have been leading us, they don't know how to do any transformation to move us progressively to self-dependency, to employment or anything. All they're busy doing is just moving us around in circles and circles and circles. When I came into this country, the homicide rate was about 250 something in 1981. I was so scared, I nearly went back. And then my colleagues sat me down. Many of my professors, many of them have retired now. They had worked in Nigeria before. Okay, so they called me and said, Tunde, you have nothing to worry about. If you don't look any man, woman, if you don't mix up with money, you just go your way. You have no problem. They said the madness has method. Those are the boundaries that I was telling you about. Right. Because if you mix up with somebody, woman, you're dead. Oh, well, I'm a man, I don't look man, so. So when you look at that, then you begin to see that the university that should be the top of society, leading rightly. If you look very carefully, you'll be shocked about things that take place, and especially how the polarization itself is so entrenched within that structure. So the question then is, how do you move? How do you develop the future? How do you do it? So, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if I've done what you want me to do, and I don't want to leave you in a depressed state, but that's just the way it is. We are all in it together. I keep doing my own little thing, in my own little way, trying as much as possible to make sure I do what I can to empower young people. And my suggestion is this. I think there is a degree of insularity. Okay? Insularity in the sense that many of us are too detached from the system because we believe that politicians are bad. And because we are detached, we are not engaged. We don't want to get involved. We don't want our character to be solid, We don't want anything to affect us. We stay aloof. And when we do that, we only allow them to have a field day.
Oh, yeah.
And I tell my students that you have no other country. This is the only country you are going to go without a visa. Okay? And if that is the case, you better be involved. Because if it is like this now, the first exchange rate that I did when I got to this country was 8-1. 8-1. That big bread, I call it 4-figure table. The white, the long hard dough.
$2 bread.
Yeah, I mean, that was it $2? Even then, it was long, you can't finish it. The same bread now is selling for almost 400 or something. And you can squeeze it together and just... So, if you look at that, then I tell them to project another 20 years down the road. If the homicide rate was 250 then, and it is now about 2,000, most of it is not reported, and then you take 10 years down the road, when it is 5,000, you'll be looking in your back mirror to see who is following you. You get home, you can't sleep, so you better get engaged. And that's the only way out. Anybody sitting on the fence, I mean, as for me, I can pick my bag today and just run away because there's somewhere else to go. You may say it's not fair, but that's the reality. You have no other place to run to. Therefore, be engaged. Thank you.
Well done.
Any questions?
Yes, ma'am, no questions.
All right, Professor Bawji, we have a few questions if you'll help me field. Let's start with Dr. Strawn and then the Lady President. Dr. Strawn?
Yes, sir. Professor, you mentioned several things. One, you said entrenchment. Now, the other thing in terms of property rights. And as you were saying that, coming back to Princess, who has just made the wine, we have to be savvy enough to have control of what we make. For instance, if you hit the cloth in Ghana, who took it over? The Koreans. And you got inferior cloth that they were selling at 10 the cloth. Everybody could wrap themselves in the pattern because the people in Ghana didn't think that much that somebody would come to steal their pattern. That's a fact, right? So number one, it's much as saying that make sure that what you make is what you call stamped, that's yours. Whether Kennedy or whomever Grace Kennedy is going to buy, it's yours, you've got the right. Number two, entrenchment. How do we get around this entrenchment? You see, there's a lot of confusion. I'm sorry because I could give away myself, but I've traveled a lot and I've lived in Africa and I've served as professorship, full professor and a visiting professor. And I know just what you're saying when you talk about our mentality. Right now I'm suffering from that what I do to friends who come to Claro, I say, darling, I can't give you all of what you're asking for, but I'll give you 1/3. That's what I don't lend, because I'm experiencing something now that's painful to me. After loaning and giving, and this person say, you have any more, but enough is enough. Enough is enough. But as Stephen has been saying, looking back at what Mr. Garvey has written, I think we have a blueprint. Because the Rastafarians and the Muslims and everybody is, yeah, I want to be number one. You can't everybody number one. You've got to have followers, except you don't have leaders. And we have to humble ourselves to say, I have confidence. We have to have confidence in ourselves and those who lead us. And the principle of Marcus, if we develop on that in terms of Africa can redeem itself, because right now I used to fight when people say that, but Africa is in a shambles. It's done. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, that was more comment.
Yes, the first thing is we need to claim ownership of our knowledge. The world, I tell my students that very early I was taught and I learned that academic work is a racket. It's not really about producing any knowledge to transform anywhere. All they want is the number of papers, the number of books, and then you get promoted. But for somebody like myself, I blended a little bit of advocacy into my work, because I cannot bury my head in the sand and then believe that I'm safe. I'm not safe anywhere. And I've experienced it, as you said. You know, when you go around, you see it. It's right there in your face. So, simply, we should encourage ourselves to claim ownership, to register, to patent, to have the copyright for whatever little thing we do. You know, what you are doing there is great. And the music by my sister there, you know, wonderful. I was thinking that when we have the Africa World Documentary Film Festival later in October, if I'm able to reach you through my big chief here, we have to bring you as part of our, you know, and we have to serve your wine. We are not, usually what I do is serve wines from South Africa, because, you know, and when I go to the shop, I make sure I buy wine either made locally around here, or it has to be South African or some other place that I can associate with. Because where my money goes is where my life will be blessed. Okay? So that copyright is very, very critical. The other big issue that you have mentioned, Africa is in shambles. It's a terrible mess. My book, what I call Narratives of Struggle, was where I did the analysis. And one of the key points that I made is that the educational system that the colonists got was never meant for them to develop themselves. Amen. It was only meant for them to continue to be subservient. The divisions in Africa is horrible. Even, you know, within local areas. It's the same kind of thing. Look at the population of Jamaica, 98 or 99% black. Yet you have these two tribal political parties that has divided the country clean, half and half. That's right. And I don't know, it's different, you know, if as a Yoruba man, I don't understand the thinking of a Hausa man, I can have a basis for suspicion. But that doesn't mean that he's not a human being. The needs that I have are the needs that he has. The fears that I have are the fears that he has. And consequently, our societies have lived together for generations before the Europeans ever ventured into Africa. So consequently, we need to have a situation where people begin to see each other as their brother's keeper. I tell people that Jamaicans are very good Christians. The person who snitched in the Bible, Judas, was condemned. Therefore, Jamaicans don't snitch. They are good Christians. They are following the example of their Bible. But in doing that, they are destroying the society. If you see something happening horrible to your friend or to your brother and you don't talk today, it's going to be your turn tomorrow. So that's a horrible thing we embraced from Christianity. Thank you.
Brother Tunde, I have something that you said. How are we going to get the diaspora communicating with motherland Africa? And I am privileged as a lady president to have been asked by the Namibia government, who will be hosting a festival in 2017. And what's important is that the U.N.I.A. was very, very active in Namibia. And they would now like to have fellowship, partnership, collaboration, whatever it is, with us here in Jamaica, for us to almost lead the way for this to happen. So I would like to have dialogue with you as an African
for you to get to understand more about this festival. It's called the African Diaspora Global Festival of Arts and Culture. So, yes, it's going to be in Namibia, and I'd like to take Princess and her wine and Asher and so many more of our culture and our arts. But I have a question for you, and it's a very, very serious question, and I want a serious answer. You've been here 24 years, you say. I was taken by the scruff of my neck when I was a young girl in lower 6 at a school in Kingston to join the Walter Rodney March. I don't know if you've heard of that. I was influenced that to this blessed day, I still wear my hair natural. Unfortunately, Brother Tunde it is, Professor Tunde, the very people who took me by the scruff of my neck are now the leaders of the country. And I have watched the transformation of these men who were Rastafarians, who were African, who were Marxists, that's right, who wore clothes that looked like we call them the dashiki, you remember that? And Professor Tunde, I have seen where these men have morphed into being black, white men. To my mind, this is the problem of Jamaica and Africa. They have taken the white man's education and it has turned them into fools. As a result of that, we are now suffering because they are neither fish nor fowl. How are we going to get Africa out of this mess? How are we going to get Jamaica out of this mess if we cannot convince these so-called leaders that Marcus Messiah Garvey is the answer? He had the blueprint that they copied, but they have lost their way. How can we get them to get back on track? Can you help us, please?
Stuart Hall, I think, is the economist. Stuart Hall is the economist. Jamaica was way ahead of Malaysia at independence. So also was Nigeria. Now, these countries, Singapore and the rest of them, they are now light years ahead. What made the difference? In my view, it is the educational system and the goal of the education. If you read Harold Miller, education in the years, you know, you will understand exactly what has happened. When Marxism was popular, the same set of people were there. But my view, all right, since I've been here virtually every year, they have now left me alone. Up until about 2000, every year they would invite me, both the PNP and the GLP would invite me to their convention. But I never attended any of them, simply because I didn't see anything that was nationalistic or anything destined to transform the country positively. And since I'm a migrant, I don't want to wear any color that will put me in one corner. Because even without that, people still associate me with GLP or PNP, whichever, you know, whatever I say at a particular time. Specifically to your question, it's a very, very difficult challenge. It is difficult because things have got worse. Because with the economic downturn, it means that the resources that could have been used for an educational system that you would have been proud of is no longer there. But we cannot give up, because I got a document from UNESCO recently, because I work with some universities in Nigeria. And it is now UNESCO that is telling us that teacher education in Africa and the diaspora has failed. If UNESCO is telling us that, then it is serious. And why? Because the education that we give the youth is simply to pass exams. It's not for them to be able to think for themselves, or to recognize their own identity, or to be able to be independent. That's not it. Until one way or the other. I mean, some time ago, I developed a paper where I suggested to my colleagues, you know, before the Honorable Rex passed, I had come to him and I said to him that Jamaica needs an Institute of Strategic Studies. An Institute of Strategic Studies is where policies are developed. I mean, when George Bush came to power, many people didn't know that the people who surrounded him were those who were the people developing the American millennium, to work out the details of how America is going to continue to dominate the world. So I said, if we have an Institute of Strategic Studies, definitely we will be able to bring our politicians together for a workshop to ask them exactly what is important in the life of a human being or of a society. Is it the number of cars that you have or houses that you have, or the titles that you have, or the legacies that you leave behind? It would have evolved, but you know, nobody was listening, and consequently we depend more on ideas generated from outside that has no sympathy for our condition, and therefore we will all continue to make noise. Hopefully somebody, and if we have people who get involved in very serious way in the political arena among us, then maybe a few years, bid their time, get into positions where they can influence policy, probably things will begin to change. Otherwise, I don't know.
We need divine intervention. I know divine people.
Yeah, that's good. Dr. Bawji, good evening, sir. Thank you for being here. Yes, I'd like to find out from you. You mentioned that the Caribbean region has been designated by the AU in the sixth region of the African Union. Yeah, the group are okay, as the sixth region of Africa. Quite interesting. Now, I'd just like to ask you, sir. Last year, the CEAAC from out of Nigeria hosted a conference here, and part of the reason that took place was on this topic of the Caribbean constituting the sixth region of the AU. Since then, although I've written to them in follow-up, I have not gotten any substantial feedback because the leader of the organization was always traveling. Is there any light that we can shed on this process evening?
Well, CBAC was an organization that was formed to be a continental organization after the Festival of Arts in 1977. However, it was more or less a Nigerian outfit. Because of that, the kind of traction that it should have, it never had it. That's number one. Number two, the director of CBAC, who was director up until late last year, Professor Bawji, he has now served his term and he has deleted office. I don't know who is the current director. Consequently, there has been a change of leadership. Third, with the political situation in Nigeria, so much has been happening or not happening, and consequently, even the president came here and made all kinds of promises, none of which materialized. So, with regard to CBAC, I think, you see, that was why when Dr. Mrs. Zuma came here, we had suggested that since we have 6 regions of Africa, and AU sets up centers of excellence in each region, we applied for Jamaica to be the location of the 6th center of excellence.
That's the HQ, the contact point, the point of contact.
Yes. We received through Professor Kawa, who is the deputy principal, we received communication that the logistics, that we need to work on the modalities. I don't know exactly how that is going, but I'm going to try and get back to Professor Kawa to ask what is being done. Now, if we are able to get that to work, that has an advantage of creating within Jamaica a kind of constituency which can then coordinate a lot of the things that we are talking about, or which we consider to be very precious to us.
The U.N.I.A can help with that, Prof. Bawji. So I hope you remember us because I know the difficulty that the 6th region has been having. To find where the black people are and to sort of register them so that they can participate. Remember, the African Union is talking about a Pan-African Parliament. They're talking about African passports, but how do we sort of register and track where our people are in the diaspora? That's what's been giving them a problem. And when you look at the issue they're having, you see quite clearly the brilliancy of Marcus Garvey founding something like the U.N.I.A. with divisions and chapters wherever black communities are. We would be the perfect vehicle, all other parts of history being considered. We were designed to be the vehicle to connect Africans to Africa. One more question, because it is getting late and Isha Bel is to perform, so because she's going to be performing next, I can't deny her the final question.
Okay, my question goes a bit deeper than just the economics and the trappings that comes with it. Where does African spirituality fit into all that we're speaking about? What I've experienced is that we as a people, most of us were raised as Christians, and our home is in heaven waiting up there. When are we going to be one again with Mother Nature? When are we going to be one again with the very principle of African spirituality? There's a question raised about Africa being in shambles. One of the greatest things is we have lost who we are as a spiritual people, when that is at the core. Until we solve that problem, we'll all be going around in circles on every angle. So how does African spirituality, I don't say Christianity because I'm not into Christianity, I'm into the Almighty Creator, in me the Most High, and how do we bridge that? How do we reawaken that spirit in what we're doing?
Thank you very much. I was brought up within the Apostolic Church, and anybody familiar with that would know that it's one of the Pentecostal denominations. And in my early years, I discovered, or I found, that there were a number of things that were difficult for me to reconcile about humanity, about God, about nature, that you have within Christianity. And very early, I came to the realization also that the two religions that came from the Arabian desert are the worst things to ever happen to humanity. Because wherever they went, they took with them they fight over land. And that is a never-ending quarrel. I once told somebody that if Islam did not exist, it had to be invented. It must be invented because you needed a counterbalance to the scourge of Christianity. Now, I'm just trying to lay the background so that you can get a proper picture of who I am. I still go to church. Okay? But that doesn't mean I don't understand the contradictions that surround me, whether within religion or outside. You see, what has kept black people globally surviving and going is African spirituality. Even though we don't teach it, it is there. Take a situation where, I tell people that it is very strange that black people, especially those of us who are fortunate to live in the tropics, we live our lives so carelessly, and we expect somebody who lives in the cold regions to come and subsidize our profligacy. It's madness. That is why you need to have IMF and World Bank and all that. But the spirituality of the Jamaican is what makes it such that a migrant Jamaican in Canada living at -40, who has to tunnel out like a rabbit, when the snow cover your house, you dig out yourself from your yard, you dig out the wrong car, and then you find that your car was left, and then you still have to dig it out. Yet they are still sending money home to maintain people who live in the tropics. It must be deep, and that is the spirituality. Because if it was white people, the moment you hit 18 or 21, you go out of home. That's the end of it. Now, how do we invest in that? The only way we invest in it is to go back to the family. And the family has been under serious assault. Why? Because little children are now having children. People in their 20s and 30s are now becoming grandmothers and grandfathers. It is absolutely irresponsible. So, I don't know. Unfortunately, we don't have what you can call leadership by example. Because the leaders themselves have no focus. Therefore, they cannot develop any form of spirituality or anything. I don't know if I answered your question, but that's just my thinking.
Final comment, Dr. Strong. Wait.
I would suggest to all of us that there's no such a thing as a perfect culture. There's no such a thing as that perfect community. So we have to shake off that in terms of searching to say, when we come to a group like this, we're going to find everything who's honest. We're going to find the good and the indifferent. We're going to find those who are here like spying, but that doesn't make us paranoid. We have to gain our trust in each other. We're done.
Well said, Dr. Strong. And I think Prof made a good point too, because it's something I've been trying to express a lot these days, that we can't talk about being revolutionary, we can't talk about being soldiers, we can't talk about black militancy if we don't understand that the family unit is the fundamental building block of the revolution. So I'm tired of black men telling me that they're soldiers but they're not take care of them people. That don't make sense. You understand? What is the revolution for if the black family has been destroyed? And we're at a certain point in age where we're being attacked on all sides. I mean, the whole definition of family is under attack right now. So we have to be wise about that. Final comment, my friend, because the prof is not taking any more questions. Is it a comment?
Yes. But the main reason why we are facing all these problems around the world and within ourselves is because we have stepped away from what has been given us from the Creator. So the main focus, if we get back to those guidelines, as the professor would say, he lives here within a certain guidelines. if we get back to those particular guidelines, as you were mentioned about the family, then the building blocks would build up back the house as a whole round the world, in my view.
Precisely. I think Garvey was tapping into that when he designed the divisions of the U.N.I.A, the lady president, the male president, the juvenile division. When we invite people to mass meeting, we always make sure to say bring the family, because unfortunately Prof didn't see it, but these are it's only at that Liberty Hall on the first Sunday you really come to an event where you see from baby to elder. And that is the true sense of the U.N.I.A and the spirit of the U.N.I.A over the years. We're very holistic in our approach to solving our issues as a race. It's not one generation that's going to do it, but it's a harmony between the elders, the youth who have the strength, and the babies who are the future to come. You know, has to be that balance. Anyway, we don't want it to get dark. We are running a little over time.